Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about synergies that occur between our lifts and how we use lifts to feed into each other. And I'm going to give the example today discussing the closed grip bench. I love to use stuff where I talk about the good morning to feed the box squat, and the box squat, of course, builds your back squat. But let's talk a little bit about closed grip benching, because a lot of us, we like closed grip. We use closed grip as our main lift because we're just better at it, the way we're built. But a lot of times people will close grip because the close grip will increase your bench, and you can do more work with the close grip, right? And if you do more work with the close grip, you can get more muscle from it, and therefore you can get more total training in, and your bench goes up. But we know that the close grip will increase the bench. So, I mean, if your close grip bench goes up 20 pounds, your flat bench will probably go up 20. So we kind of get into that question of, well, how do we build the close grip bench? And that's something I've heard Louis Simmons say. Of course, he'll say that as an example, but doesn't always tell you how to do it when he says that. But I'm going to tell you kind of how to do it, of what's going on with that. Well, obviously, one of the things you do with the closed grip bench is your rep work, right? Actual closed grip bench. Obviously, your speed work. That all matters. But let's say someone isn't running conjugate yet, right? Let's say they're not running conjugate yet. They're not doing dynamic effort work. So how do we build a closed grip bench? Well, obviously, one of the main things you do is your actual rep work on closed grip. Now, you could rotate bars. And that's the problem we run into. We can take a movement like this and we can argue, well, the closed grip is technically could be better for higher volumes of hypertrophy work than the flat bench because it's easier on most people's shoulders. And I think that's a fair point. We have kind of a longer stroke, longer range of motion. We could argue that because of that, slightly more hypertrophic potential while being slightly easier on the joints. And I think a good case can be made for that. So obviously, the closed grip itself. But let's look at some other synergies. So what's the difference between a closed grip and a flat bench? Well, closer grip obviously changes the range of motion. Some people would argue less pectoral involvement. I don't know if that's really the case. We could argue the pectorals are not in the best leverage position, but I've seen experts definitely say that they feel that the closed grip bench itself can be a fantastic chest builder. Okay. Mainly we come back over to the point of the pecs are still a primary mover. Right, no matter what we do with the closed grip, even though we might use more tricep and stuff, the pecs are largely the primary mover still. They're still probably the most important muscle in it, although those ratios are changed a lot. Some people we could argue might be triceps. But in theory, a little less pec, a little more front delt in many cases, right? Earlier on in the exercise. Because of the angles involved, your front delts oftentimes get involved more heavily a little early on. And then more tricep involvement. Okay? All this stuff. So we start looking at, well, what do we do to get better at those? Well, closed grip benching. But then we have overhead pressing. In fact, there's a great synergy between the overhead press and closed grip work. Plenty of coaches have noticed it. You'll see that a lot. You'll see a lot of guys who really push the press as a primary exercise like to use the closed grip bench as an accessory for the press. What does the press do? The press itself can help your closed grip go up because of all the front delt and the upper chest, hitting the triceps at a different angle. If you get good at the strict press, if you get really good at the strict press, you're going to find that you don't hit that same sticking point on the closed grip bench. Like a lot of times when you start sticking like 4 or 5 inches off the chest, you don't have that problem if you get really good at the press. Because again, a lot of front delt involvement. Okay. And it seems to really work well for improving the closed grip bench, particularly if you do it with a closer grip. Like here, I'm doing a closed grip in this one for high reps, obviously. Although this isn't much weight, and this footage is going to be old by the time that gets there. Here, hopefully, I'll be a lot stronger again on it. So it's after rehabbing my shoulder. So, the overhead press. And it works both ways. These two lifts both increase each other. The closed grip bench and the overhead press tend to feed into each other very, very effectively. Now people will say, well, the overhead press shouldn't. I mean, it doesn't work the chest as much. Yeah, but isn't always as much chest leverage involved in the closed grip anyways. Uses a lot of front delt, a lot of tricep. Well, so does this exercise. So again, there's a feeding into it. Well, what else? And the JM press. Anything that works the triceps in a way that is similar to the bench is going to have tremendous carryover to the closed grip bench. Okay, so you'll see me doing JM presses with chains here. So why a JM press? Well, a JM press is like a combination between a skull crusher and a closed grip bench. Now, a correctly done skull crusher will actually improve your closed grip bench also, won't it? Our only issue with the skull crusher is that it's really hard on the elbow tendons, so you can't leave it in for long periods of time. You got to rotate it around. JM press can arguably do the same, but we can alleviate that easier. But it's still a multi-joint exercise that basically just shifts all the emphasis involved the other direction versus a closed grip bench. Closed grip bench is, usually pec, front delt, tricep. We could argue that, triceps more than front delts on it, but they matter a lot. The emphasis swaps. There's a little bit of pec involvement and a lot of tricep involvement. And the tricep involvement is very specific to the way that we use it on the bench press. Plus, it's a good tricep strength builder in general and size builder. So it tends to actually increase your overhead press also. And if the overhead press increases, what happens to our closed grip? It tends to go up. But this addresses very, very effectively triceps on the closed grip bench because it uses the triceps. It uses the heads in the same ratios that we see on the closed grip. There's very, very good carryover. But again, easier on a lot of joints and recovery. It can be hard on the elbow tendons, but we can use variations of it. We can use reverse bands. We can use chains. We can change some of that if we need to. But this will increase your closed grip, and it creates a synergy. So we would use this. We could say, well, the overhead press, obviously, we see the carryover there. We see this too, and this will increase both. This will increase your closed grip bench. Well, kind of the question that we asked before is, well, if we know the closed grip bench will increase the bench, how do we increase the closed grip bench? Well, a lot of us would argue, well, not only training the closed grip bench, but doing JM presses will help. If the JM press goes up and we get stronger and better at it and build more tricep, the closed grip press tends to go up. So then the next question becomes, how do we build the JM press? I'd argue other tricep work, especially band work, for example, because again, it helps alleviate the elbow inflammation we get with this. It increases the work capacity of the triceps, which can be very, very helpful when we're doing chains, reverse bands, things like that. Any of those things with this movement. Okay. But the movement in general itself also, increasing that work capacity on it matters. So essentially, we create a synergy with these things of saying, hey, what would happen if I just did nothing but closed grip benching? Well, you get overuse injuries and you'd improve your closed grip, but not as much as if you add in these other movements to address the different elements involved. And they all feed into each other. They all feed into each other. But we could also look at each of those and say, hey, what could I do with each of those exercises to get better at them faster so that my closed grip bench goes up? And that's the mindset we should always be in with our training. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.